Hello, I'm Kate Erbland from IndieWire, and you are at IndieWire's Sundance 2025 studio presented by Dropbox. I am joined by some of the incredible talents behind the new documentary, Come See Me in the Good Light. We have director Ryan White and producer, and you also appear in the doc, Tig Notaro. Ryan, how did you get involved with the story? Because I didn't know anything about Andrea and Megan before this, and I think within 3 minutes of watching the movie, I was so fully invested. Mm-hmm. I did a lot of Wikipediaing. Yep. But how did this story come to you?
Well, I feel like the luckiest filmmaker in the world that it fell into my lap, and it's through Tig, so I think you should actually tell how I got into it.
Well, I've known Jessica, and producer Jessica, and Ryan for several years now. And we always see each other at award shows and events and parties and stuff. And just kind of, I'm a massive fan of their films. And we've talked loosely about maybe trying to find something to work on together. And then my very good friend, Steph Willen, who is a mutual friend of mine and Andrea and Megan's, Steph and I were chatting, and she said, I feel like this would be a great documentary. And I just it was electric. I saw everything. Last night at the screening, I said, I imagined every one of you sitting here tonight, and I cannot tell you how true that is. And so I reached out to 5 different, whether producer, director, financiers, and just told people, I have this friend of 25 years that is a poet with incurable cancer and up in the mountains in Colorado, and their life and their love story with their partner is something to see.
Yeah.
And I said, I can only sell you so much, and if you do the slightest deep dive, you're either in or you're not. And 3 days later, I heard back saying, are you sure they'd want to do a film at this point in their life? And I said, I know for a fact. And days later, they were on a plane to film this movie.
And I also like you, I had never heard of Andrea. And we had been saying to Tig for years, bring us something funny. Why can't documentaries be funnier?
Yes.
And so when Tig called and pitched poetry and cancer, it was like, oh, Tig misunderstood the assignment. This is not what we were expecting her to finally come with. But that little deep dive that she told us to do, you actually sent it to us. She sent us 2 links of Andrea performing, and you told us to listen to Glennon Doyle and Abby Wambach's interview with Andrea on their podcast. And so Jess and I watched those 2 clips. It was not what I understood as poetry.
Right.
I would not consider myself a poetry fan. I know Maya Angelou and Amanda Gorman, but I'm not a poetry reader in any way.
You also know roses are red, violets are blue.
Yeah,
that
the
whole
classics.
thing.
Yeah, I know that one.
Yeah, that's been going around.
So I do know poetry. Yeah.
But also Andrea and Meg are both hilarious. I mean,
Yes.
When I first met Andrea, I was the same, finding out Andrea was a poet, I was like, huh, okay. And then I watched this show, and I'm like, this is a full-blown rock star poet. Sexy, deep, mysterious, cool.
Their hair.
Yeah.
Hair, tats. This was not what I thought of as poetry, but also Andrea is just deeply hilarious as much as they are deeply feeling everything on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you mentioned some of your other producers. The producers you have, in addition to you, Tig, Sarah Bareilles, who wrote a song for this, Brandi Carlile, Glennon Doyle. It seems like
Abby Wambach.
It must have been a very easy ask for everyone to support Andrea and Meg in this way.
Yeah. I mean, as soon as they came on, Jess and Ryan, I knew that Glennon and Abby had kind of this newfound friendship with Andrea and Meg through interviewing them on We Can Do Hard Things podcast. And I just thought, I'm going to go out on a limb here and just see. Yeah. And when I texted saying, I have something to run by you, a project with Andrea and Meg, and I'm telling you, they sent a Zoom link at 8 or 9 that night. And we were on 2 minutes later. I go over it with them. They said, let us think about it. We'll get back to you. And I was like, okay, that feels positive. And I'm not exaggerating when I say, I think 30 seconds later, I got a text saying, we're in for $500,000. And I was like,
that's the dream.
what? And that just started the ball rolling of like, all right, we have something to go on. And we just started going out to people, and it was just green lights the whole way.
Because of the nature of Andrea's cancer, I'm really curious about what expectations, Ryan, you had going into it about where this story was going to go, where Andrea's life was going to go, and where you might end it. The film even starts with Andrea and Meg joking about how to end it. Could you even go in with expectations of the beats you were going to hit and where this was going to take you?
Yeah, it definitely evolved into a different film than I had in my head at the beginning, and I believe what Andrea had in their head as well. So I never met Andrea until I went there with a camera. Like, Andrea and Meg fully trusted Tig and Steph. They said we picked filmmakers. Jess and I showed up in Colorado, pulled into the driveway. Andrea and Meg came out, hugged us, and Andrea said to me, well, I guess you're going to be with me when I die. Welcome to my home. And so that was the assumption all along. Right. And it actually became like a point of, Andrea is very funny and has dark humor. It became a point of humor throughout the film when Andrea would get a good cancer result. They would look at me and say like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm ruining your film. I might actually be like the miracle child, And then as we continued filming, we fell in love with Andrea and Meg. Like they actually started saying, I love you to us after our first shoot. And so the idea that someone that we loved was going to die while we were shooting them was really scary and traumatizing. And we reached a point where it was like, well, we entered it thinking, at least I did, thinking it was going to be a film about Andrea's death. And while we were shooting it, we started to understand, like, this is not a film about dying. It is a film about mortality, but it is all about living and the time that we have on this earth. And so why does the hero have to die in the end? And then the idea that Andrea kept outlasting the odds. They're like many years past their life expectancy at this point. We thought that they might die right after our very first shoot when they got a very bad result. So the idea that maybe we could come to Sundance and Andrea could actually be at the premiere. And last night, Andrea was just full of emotion with the idea, like, I never, ever entertained the idea that I would see this film.
I mean, it's the most obvious question. What was last night like for you guys? I've seen photos, I've seen video. I wasn't there. I'm getting choked up thinking about it.
It was, I think about my own projects where I'm the subject or I'm the star of it, or it's my stand-up special. And I'm certainly excited to share it with people, but I'm a little more hesitant and like, I wonder what people are going to think, or I wonder if I'm, with this. I felt like Christmas morning when I woke up. I was like, I cannot believe people are going to see this. Like, I was so excited. And it was everything that I hoped it would be. And it played so well. People laughed so hard and people cried so hard. And it was, I don't know. That's what it was for me.
And we went backstage after the Q&A.
Maybe you had a very different experience.
No, I'm always like a train wreck at these things anyway with nerves, but I was sitting next to Andrea and Meg, so that was just so special that I was getting to be with them while we watched the film. But we went backstage afterwards, and it was just, 10 of us, all those EPs that you said, and just kind of stood in a little circle. And
Holding each
other, and Andrea just let us know how important it was to them that we had been a part of telling this story and to be there with us. So yeah, hands down for me, I think I've made 15 films, but that was the most special screening I've ever been at.
Had you shown the film to Andrea and Meg beforehand?
One time.
What was that like?
Well, I always think that's the worst experience in the world. The first time you show a subject a documentary, they still think it was a good experience, but I'm like, no. You will look back at this in 6 months and know that was the worst screening you've ever had. I think it's just anyone who's in a film, I don't know what that's like. It's an insane decision to make, to be in a documentary. Well, you did. So to finally watch that, what somebody else created out of those thousands of hours that they shot of you. Meg has a little bit more distance, so I think Meg had a more enjoyable first screen. I think Andrea said they loved it, but I think they were shell-shocked watching it. Last night when it ended, they leaned over to me and they were like, I finally saw it as a film. Like, the first time I was so afraid of watching it, and I got to watch it today just as a film you created. And so I think last night was, and them getting to hear the audience laugh with them, I think was very, I think you could feel the impact that they were having on those 500, 600 people in the room, and I think that was very special for them.
There was never like an awkward moment of like, God, I can't feel the room. I can't tell if everyone's still.
Yeah.
The whole room was fully engaged, start to finish.
Incredible. Thank you guys so much. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Please send our love to Andrea and Meg. We really loved it.
We will. Thank you, Kate.